This playthrough is rated T for teen. Welcome to the Shadows. I knew you'd be back. Greetings and salutations, viewers. Vauldemare back here with another new game from my library. This time it's Shadowrun for the Sega Genesis. Made by the Sega Corporation in 1994, based off the Shadowrun franchise from 1989, made by FASA, a cyberpunk world based off the works of Neuromancer by Mel Gibson, which is a lot of people's. That's where a lot of people made Cyberpunk, is based off that book and story. Pretty interesting read. I don't know if I call it super great, but there's a lot of fascinating stuff in the book. It's worth checking out if you like the cyberpunk genre and where it came from. This came a year after the Super Nintendo one, and unfortunately most people tend to remember the Super Nintendo one over the Sega Genesis version of the game. I prefer the Super Nintendo one overall, but I like the Sega Genesis one because it plays more like the tabletop game. Like, you have a basic adventure, but you have to do all the stuff in between to get to the plot. You know, a more like side quest, and then you have enough power to get to the initial area of the game. But it has its own charm. There's a lot of things to like about this game. But let's get into it before we babble on for too long. So yeah, there's no like extra cutscene that unlocks if you take too long. So, all right, let's start our adventure. Press the start button. This is a Sega, so it's only got A, B, and C, up, down, left, right, and start. And that's pretty much it. Let's start a new game. So we play as Joshua. He could play three type of characters in the game. The Samurai, which is our fighter character. They can use cybernetics to enhance their abilities, and they could also use guns and SMGs and shotguns to procure their justice. They also have hand razors, too, to melee people to death. We've got the Decker, which uses his skill to surf the Matrix to gather information and gather a little extra duty in amongst the way. And finally, we got the Gator Shaman, the magic user of the group. Since this takes place in a world with magic, you could use the shaman, the Gator spirit itself to work together for it to cast spells and the like. All are very optimal ways to play. You play the Samurai if you want to play a straightforward game. You play the Decker if you want to, you can play the Decker if you want to get a little bit more Nuyen in the end, but you still need to be able to defend yourself. And the Gator Shaman if you want to play a little bit differently with the ability to cast magic to aid you, whether it be healing or attacking or defending yourself. All are pretty solid builds. I prefer not playing as the Decker because you could build a Samurai to become a Decker, or you could build a Decker to become a Samurai. It's inefficient to do that because it costs essence to do that, and I'll go over essence here in a second. I prefer playing as either the Shaman or the Gator and getting a third-party character to help you. We'll go over that whenever it comes down to it. But for this run, we're going to play a Samurai. And I'll go over the details of how they play as we go along. The time, January 31st, 2058. The place, Seattle, UCAS. Under the cover of darkness, a team of Shadowrunners moves through Salih Shahid wilderness. Without warning, they are ambushed by unknown forces. The massacre is over quickly, but captured are Tri-Vid by one of the slain members' Cyber-Eyes. The Tri-Vid was recovered and made national news. Michael, your brother, was the last to die. Spending your last Nuyen to go to Seattle, you vow to avenge your brother's death. Landing at a SeaTac airport, you flag a cab to bring you to Michael's last cred stick transaction, Stoker's Coffin Motel, located in the Redmond Barrens. Alright, we find ourselves in the game itself. The battered sign reads, Stoker's Coffin Motel. Motels like these are cheap, each room only large enough to fit a small bed. Dumps like these tend to attract the dregs of humanity. The manager yawns. I won't bore you with a welcome speech, so what do you want? Here for pick up Michael's stuff. So you're Michael's brother, eh? Your bro's skipped on paying his bills, and I'm holding his stuff till I get the rent back. Let's make a deal. You pay up the $250 Nuyen he owes, and I'll fork over his stash. $250? How much could he have stored in one of those rooms? Hey, if you need Nuyen to head up the street to the jump house, Gunderson is always looking for runners. You'll find him in a booth towards the back of the bar. So we got our first objective. Get enough money to get Michael's stuff back. So this is Seattle. This is the, well, focus point of the game. Most adventures in Shadowrun take place in Seattle. You can play anywhere in the world, but most of the stories run across this. Shadowrun is a world run with in a future where people all of a sudden, during the awakening, turned into elves, dwarves, orcs, trolls, and the like. And luckily we're human in this game. Well, actually, depending on how you look at it, maybe not. But humans are the common people. Then you got like elves, which are more magically inclined, dwarves, which are more technically inclined. But you can make any character the way you want in the game. There's just usually plus or minuses depending on what race you're playing and stuff like that. But anyway, here's the main screen itself. We're Joshua, human samurai, or whatever class you choose. We have our physical stat, mental stat. Physical stat is when you take physical damage from like gunpowder, fire power, certain spells, and the like. Mental power is usually, you can take that from maybe taking certain physical damage, like certain fist attacks will knock you down. Certain spells will do that as well. If either one of those hits 0, you're out, but not dead. We'll go over that if that ever happens, which probably will. Let's look at the right of the screen. You see our character portrait there. We have a red bar and a blue bar. The red bar is our physical health. The blue bar is our mental health. So keep aware of these at all times. Below that is a number and the gun picture. That is our weapon and how many clips we have, or how much ammo we have per clip. And every time that reaches 0, you use a clip. So it doesn't matter if you have 10 bullets in a gun or 2 bullets. They use a full clip every time you reach 0. So keep that in mind when you're picking weapons. Let's look at the type of weapons we got, actually. Joshua has the Model 101T light pistol, does light damage and little to nothing. And our attack power right now is at 6 boxes per tick. So because of our body stat, because of our certain stats and everything like that. This is a basic weapon. I would not buy this outright if you had the money for it. I'd probably sell it as soon as we get the chance, because this ain't going to defend stuff from us at all. But it comes with the gear, so yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't outright buy this. Let's get rid of this as soon as we can. We have an armor vest, which gives us 1 tick against weapons and 2 ticks against guns. Weapons means like melee, like if people come in and try to punch us to death, or with razors or something like that. We also got scatter grenades, which do 3 damage and light power. I do not like using grenades because it requires you to position and kind of figure out where enemies are going to move and stuff like that. And it's too crazy in battle to really get this to go properly. There's probably better people who can use grenades better than I could, but I will not be using these. You get these for free as playing a samurai. And finally, we get a med kit. Med kit will heal up to possibly up to 50% of your health, but that's based off a certain skill. Right now, we're not very good with these med kits, to tell you the truth. We have to raise a certain skill up to make them more useful. There's another item you could buy, which I'll go over eventually, that will probably be a little bit easier, at least at the beginning of the game, but then as soon as you upgrade a certain skill, you'll want to buy med kits from now on. Okay, so let's go over the screen here. So let's go over posture. What posture is how your character acts during battle. So you can either go full offensive or full defensive, and that'll affect your stats slightly. As you can see, if I go full defensive, my defense stat goes up. If I go higher, it goes full offense, it goes up. If you're playing the main character or whoever you're currently playing as, but mainly your main character, I suggest keeping them on neutral or mid defense stat, somewhere in the middle basically. If you go into battle and you're full offense, you might do some damage. You'll probably get wrecked pretty quickly and get knocked out. I wouldn't do that. I'd stick to neutral for the most part. But you can affect it if you feel like you're more confident in your abilities. Okay, let's go over clips. Clips is how you reload your weapon in the game. So you could reload your weapon. There's really no reason to reload on the screen unless you're really like worried in combat, like you're kind of flustered. You could pause the screen and load your thing, but in the middle of combat, you just press the A button while shooting. It'll take a second, but you'll reload your ammo and then go right to it again. So I don't see the need to go into this pause screen to do this, but that's up to you, I guess. You can also trade your clips to other players or other runners, and you could also distribute your clips to as well, but we have no party members to do that with. And then we could trade with party members, which is trading our gear and stuff like that. And then we could cancel, abort the function. Alright, let's look at attributes and skills. Yeah, this part, probably the rest of the game will be us just going over the game mechanics before we earn money. Gotta learn how to play the game, am I right? Anyway, attributes and skills. In this game, there are 2 stats we have to pay attention to in the game. Our attributes and our skills overall. So attributes are our main overall stats for a character. We got body here, which body resists damage from weapons, firearms, physical spells, and black ice. One of the most important skill abilities in the game, because like I said, it affects how we can take damage from things, and it reduces like how much physical damage we take overall. You want to get this up. However, if you're playing as a Decker or Samurai, I would wait to build up these attributes till you can get some cybernetics into you, because the way the game works is that if you max out your stat and you buy a cybernetic that raises a physical stat, you'll basically wasted buying that ability in the first place. So I wouldn't even. So there'd be no point at that point. Just build up your attribute and just not get the cybernetic, except in a few situations where it'll be helpful. So for now, I am going to hold off on these 3 skills, body quickness and strength, until I can get the money for cybernetics, which might be a while, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, we also got quickness. Quickness determines movement and attack speed and increases combat and cyber combat success. So this is how fast you are in combat when it comes to reloading, moving. This is really mainly for moving, because in the game you don't move super slow, but if you get this up decently enough, you can actually start speeding along routes, and it'll make the game a lot faster. We definitely want to build this up at some point. Strength increases our melee damage and grenade accuracy. If you're playing a Gator Shaman and you're not going to do any physical stuff like punching, I would ignore the stat for the most part. I would build this up mainly if you're going to be playing the Samurai or a Decker who eventually gets hand razors or spurs, which is an item I'll go over maybe next episode. We'll see what happens. And grenade accuracy. Since I'm not using grenades, I don't care about that part of the ability. Finally, charisma, or not finally, one of the other ones is charisma. Charisma reduces the higher prices of Shadowrunners and increases fast talk success. We actually do want to raise this up at some point because one, it could reduce the cost, but 2, fast talk success, which when we get to certain missions, this might make going through certain areas a lot faster if we can max this out. Then we got intelligence. Intelligence determines your attack speed, plus combat and cyber combat success. Cyber combat is when you go into the Matrix and fight things. We'll go over that whenever I do a Matrix mission. We will at some point have to, because those are the most lucrative missions in the game, is cyber combat. But let's just say you do want to build this up no matter what character you're playing as. Willpower. Willpower resists damage from mana spells and magical drain. It also increases combat success. If you're playing a Gator Shaman, you'll want to raise this up. As a Decker or Samurai, it's not super important. You still want to raise it up at some point, but it's not a high priority for you, because most mana spells do physical drain and not mental drain, weirdly enough. And finally we have or another one time, I don't know why I keep saying finally. We're not finally done yet. We got Essence here. Essence allows fast magical healing. It decreases when cyberware is installed. So Essence is basically your humanity in the game. In Cyberpunk, you can, or Cyberpunk or Shadowrun or whatever, you can actually pull your body apart and put robot parts or cybernetics or whatever inside your body, and that lowers your essence. As in the tabletop game, if you ever hit 0 essence, you basically become a robot, an NPC. You lose your humanity. You're no longer controllable as a character. In the Cyberpunk world, you have the higher chance of getting cyber psychosis, where you just go insane basically. In the video games, hitting 0 essence doesn't do anything at all, but in the tabletop game, it's differently. If you're a wizard, anytime your essence drops, your magical stat will drop as well. So if you're playing a Gator Shaman, you never want this to go below 6. It is not effective for you to do that. So you could do that as a Shaman, but that'd be stupid. So only drop your essence if you're a Decker or a Samurai. If you're a wizard, do not worry, do not mess with this at all. So, and then finally, the magic stat in terms of attributes. Magic determines the maximum force of spells cast. It decreases when cyberware is installed. So the higher this is, the more power you can put to a spell. It may be less drain on your person. As a Decker and Samurai, this will always be 0. You can never raise this up past that point, so don't even worry about that. We won't mess with that. Okay, so attributes can be raised via karma in the game, and they are raised up to, since we're human, our maximum stat is 6. And the way it works is karma is experience in the game. You use it to raise up your stats. So to get body to 5, actually, I might go over that when we actually get karma and actually use it. Then I'll go over the details on that. But I need you to understand our skill sets for the beginning of the game just to figure out what we're doing. All right, sorcery. These are our skills. These work differently from attributes. These are more focused abilities in the game. So sorcery determines success with spellcasting. This is only used for Gator Shaman. And raise that up if you're playing a Gator Shaman. If not, I'll ignore it. Firearms. This is a skill, determines how good you are with guns. Now there's two ways. There's two ways you can build this up. You can either build up the firearm skill itself, which determines your use of all guns, or if you're not going to use certain guns in the game, you could just build up a stat itself. It's a little bit cheaper to build up a stat itself, but you won't be as good with all the weapons. Really, in this game, you technically only really need to be good with the pistol, and that'll basically cover you for the rest of the game. Pistols are basically single shots, but depending on what you can do, you can shoot it pretty quickly. SMGs are multi-shot guns. You can shoot usually 3 bullets at once, but depending on how it goes, you might miss a lot of the times. And shotguns are just, guns that have very small clips, but they can do a lot of damage if they hit. They're the most powerful weapons in the game, obviously. But yeah, it's cheaper. So if you're focusing on one weapon, I would just use your karma and a specific skill, or if you just want to use all of them. Like I said, most samurai will usually use all weapons if you want to, and you just build up the firearm skill. But I find it more effective to use pistols in the game myself, but that's up to you. And then melee combat is your ability to use hand-to-hand combat. You're probably thinking, in a game with guns, why would you ever choose melee combat? Well, there's actually certain enemies in the game that are particularly resistant to gun damage. As you saw in my armor, there's some armor that is better for against melee combat than gun damage, or vice versa. So there are some enemies in the game you actually just want to go into melee, and you'll actually take them down faster because their armor might not be. It's kind of like the difference between like mesh armor and like ballistics type of Kevlar or something like that. Because Kevlar can take a bullet shot, but it can't take a knife wound, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I studied armor, but there are armors for different types of either slashing or ballistic type of things. Throwing is increase your accuracy and damage when tossing grenades. I'm never going to raise this because I'm not going to use grenades. But if you want to use grenades, this is the way you go. This will allow it to where you can throw them at the right enemy more effectively. The problem with grenades is that they have splash damage, so they can hit your allies as well as you. And your allies can get a bit complicated depending on how their AI works. So unless you're playing by yourself, I probably wouldn't mess with the grenades, but like I said, that's up to you. Computer, this will increase your success in cyber combat and the operation of nodes. So that depends how well you are in the Matrix when it comes to combat and stuff like that. Only build this up if you're playing a decker, or if you want to make a samurai that's a decker. If you're not, just ignore that as your main character. Biotech, this determines our success with the med kit. So every time we raise it, we increase our percentages of using med kit more effectively to get at least half of our HP back. You want to raise this as soon as you can. I would say at least get it to 5 or 6 at least, if not obviously further. Electronics determines the success of attempting to force open mag locks. Those are certain locked doors in the game. There are ways to improve this. There's an item that can improve it. There's also a item called a mag key that allow you to just bypass certain doors. I'd personally wait to get the mag keys to do that, but that's up to you. Reputation affects how people overall see the notoriety of our character. Really, for reputation, you really only need to get up to maybe 6 in the game. You don't really need to max it out, because that gets the most use is at about 6. But you do want to build it up if you want to talk to certain people or make the game a little bit easier in certain parts. Finally, negotiation. Negotiate increases Shadowrun payments and influences the buying and selling. So you use this if you want to get paid more for your jobs, because we need to get money for Michael's equipment. So you might want to build this up. That's the thing about this game. If you're a grinder like I was as a kid, getting negotiation up isn't really a high priority because you're going to eventually get the money anyway for just playing the game over and over again. However, it does eventually make a difference if you get like your max negotiation. You can save like hundreds of thousands of new yen just by maxing out your negotiation stat. So that's how you want to play the game. If you want to be a lot more efficient with your money, you might waste some of your karma on negotiation to make that cost a little bit less. Alright, let's go over cyberware. All that does is tells you what we have. Cyberware, right now, all we have as a samurai is we have our hand razors. That's basically our melee weapon. And then, so if I unequip the gun, we have our hand razors. So you can run into combat and just hit. It looks like you've got long fingernails like Lady Deathstrike. Well, not quite Lady Deathstrike, because those were huge in the comics. And here it looks like it's just kind of annoying. Like, was it, I'm trying to think of like a cartoon like Family Guy or something like that, where it's just like, I can make my nails grow. Ah, that was annoying. That's kind of true, actually, when you think about it. And then finally, magic. Here it just tells us our physical mana defense overall, so nothing really much to that since we're playing a samurai. Finally, our pocket secretary. We got our notebook. This tells us what current run we're on. You're not currently engaged in a Shadowrun. Get a job, you loser, you bum. Tips and clues. These are suggestions on what you need to do to get on with the plot. If you've taken a nap since then, or not sure what to do, you can go to the tips and clues and it tells you what you probably should do or keep a lookout for. So our tips are Michael's last credstick transaction, the Stoker's Coffin Motel in Redmond Barrens, which we're at right now, and we must pay the $250 new yen to get Michael's stuff back. Great. All right, Mr. Johnsons. These are the people that will give us jobs throughout the game. I think there's 6 Johnsons if I recall. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I might be wrong on that one. See, yeah, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head all the different characters. See, no, I think it's 5 actually. Okay, but anyway. Yeah, Mr. Gunnarsson is a small-time Johnson who works out at the Jump House Bar in the Redmond Barrens. So if you want to back out on things in the game, the A, B, and C are usually for confirming, and start is to back out. Yeah, Mr. Johnson will give you a job in the game, and they'll give you money and stuff like that. Group items are important items in the game that you'll carry on your person. They don't take up any slots. They're just there to remind you what important they are to the plot. We'll go over that whenever it comes to it. Cyber deck. We don't have a cyber deck. Even as a decker, you don't have a cyber deck, unfortunately. So, you don't have a cyber deck. Keep looking. So we'll get one eventually. And then you can dismiss a runner. So runners on the right side of the screen, you see those 2 extra blank spots. Those are for other runners. Those are other NPCs in the game that you can hire. There's not a whole lot of runners in the game. There's, let's see, 3, 6. There's like 9 runners you can hire in the game. Not as much as the Super Nintendo one. I think in the Super Nintendo you could hire quite a few more. But they cover the bases of what you want in the game overall. And then here we can save and load the game. As you can see here, just save right there. Alright. Yeah, unfortunately this episode's more of a tutorial on how the game begins, so... Well, alright, looks like the game has only just begun. We've come to find out why our brother's been killed, and it looks like it's going to be more complicated than that. We're going to have to work for a living. Ugh! We'll find out what type of jobs are offered next time in the next episode of Shadowrun for the Sega Genesis. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.